Well, we were hoping a weather system was going to hit the north coast of California. We showed you a perfectly spherical system. Excuse me. And we showed you how the edges would flatten out before they got to the coast, and the storm would probably suddenly and mysteriously shift north. And if it was artificially created, we would be looking for a flat edge on our nice circle. And here you see a system that looks more like a rectangle now, and that's quite sad. The front edge of that storm, you can see that blue wave coming in. That used to be as perfect sphere as you could ever have nature create for you. The storm was large enough to cover the entire state of California and even Oregon. And the front lower edge was pretty dry. We can't figure out why it was dry, but it was pulling down moist cold air from the north. The whole system, it looks like it's being manipulated with high ridges of high pressure. They used to, when the jet stream got so strong and so relentless, they were unable to keep these out of California. That's when we had the Oroville flooding, and we noticed that these flat edges on the storm started occurring further out sooner. They started using VLF and microwaves on these, and they were developing these flat edges on nice perfect spheres out by Alaska instead of, halfway in between the Alaskan longitude and the California coast. But the cold front that was unexpectedly killing crops through the lower part of the United States, the Southwest, and the mountains. You wouldn't think it would freeze in Arizona and New Mexico in September, but you got to remember this is elevation, 5,000, 6,000 feet. So, and temperatures were being reported as being 35, and they ended up being colder. People just were off guard, and all their hard work just went out the window on some of these plants. So, but that storm is catching that jet stream, which is not a jet stream. It's a, I don't know what you would call the jet stream anymore. But we talked about how in 2 days moisture could go from the Gulf of California to the Great Lakes, and that cold front is being sent on its way north, which usually cold fronts come in from the north going south, but now this one is making a U-turn kind of. So we got the flat edge developing, and when you look at the global picture, you can see some flat edges, very flat edges, and not round edges, and that's suspect of artificially created high pressure. And this is a really good zoom on what's happening. There's 3 counterclockwise spinning low pressures. All of them are getting flat edges. All of them were spherical. That one from up north is a big, powerful push in towards California. Everything was trying to come and flood California. It looked like on a very fast track to the west coast, but everything meets these ridges, and all of a sudden you have these straight lines developing throughout these low pressures. There's 3 low pressure zones, one over there by Siberia spinning, coming across the Aleutians, and so all of this is being almost like redirected away from fire. But this system was trying to reach down to Hawaii and grab some stuff here, some moisture, but it didn't. So this leads us of this is the apocalyptic fires, and every year we hear the word apocalyptic, and when you're in a fire, it is apocalyptic, and we were covering fires in Canada where the smoke was making it all the way across the Atlantic, and these fires have just gotten worse. When Australia went up, I seemed like I was the only one putting out a call that hey, we need to do something before this happens to us, because this is coming to us. How are you guys doing over there?
Good. They lifted all the evacuation warnings on our side of the lake.
So you're on the south side of Lake Oroville?
Yeah, I'm on the side that's not burning.
So you're below the dam then, right?
Yeah.
So was that area evacuated during the flood 2 years ago?
Probably. Yeah.
So I heard that almost all of Berry Creek was overrun.
Yeah, I think Berry Creek was leveled.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the pictures today. It was kind of crazy, and they described it as a mushroom cloud. And you said you saw the mushroom cloud?
Oh yeah, it looked like an atomic bomb. I saw it driving home,
Uh-huh.
and like I was driving from blue skies, and I went, "Oh, that's a big fire!" Like driving home, and by the time I got to Oroville, it was so smoky you could no longer see the mushroom cloud. And I had like went into Walmart, and when I came out, it was raining ash. This is just a warning, like they're not evacuating us. And we're like, well, it's windy. We were up, we watched it all night, watched the flame, made sure the flames weren't coming over the hill, and never did. Because we were going to go before there was an order. You know what I mean? Like, we weren't waiting for an order. We were waiting on if the winds got any heavier, you know,
yeah.
if that glow got any brighter. But it died down. And
why was it that it sounds like you got the whole family behind you, but why was Berryville not notified or evacuated, or Berry Creek?
They shut off their power. So they have rolling blackouts in California, and when you're getting high winds, we had 56-mile-an-hour gusts that day.
Uh-huh.
And so when they get high winds, PG&E does rolling blackouts to prevent forest fires. And I think it also really has something to do with one of California's bills on like saving like their carbon footprint. And so I think they go, we don't have enough energy. We got to shut off your power because we don't have enough energy. Yeah, so they passed regulations on coal burning.
So they used up their limit and had to shut down?
My mobile alert went off around 2:30, and the neighbors came and got us. So they shut off people's power. That's what it really is, but what they tell you is that it's too windy and they're going to shut off your power. But really what it is they don't provide enough energy for the state. And so if you use too much, then they shut off your power. So Berry Creek, where you don't have good cell signal, like no one has any cell signal up there.
Uh-huh.
So they shut off their power so they didn't get any their evac warnings. They have no cell signal. Their TVs don't work because there's no power.
Uh-huh.
And so when they got the evacuation warning, no one got it because they had no power.
Uh-huh. And
they don't have sirens, and they should have sirens because that's what happened in Paradise.
Yeah.
So
now the question I would have is, it's under a state of emergency. You would think that stupid regulations like your carbon footprint regulation means nothing, because if you step back and look at the satellite images, California's carbon footprint is leaving a footprint on the entire world right now. I made a very, very boisterous video about what was going on in Australia, and saying how Australia is kind of a precursor to America, because they have summer down there, and when we have our winter. So we see the worst fire-created ecological disaster on the planet Earth. And I make a video saying, this is going to happen to Cali, this is going to happen to the United States, please don't let this happen, please beef up your mechanicalized resources, and begging and screaming, and I was actually calling out the president, Trump, and there does not seem to be a will to put out fires. It seems like there's a gravy train or a money train where you get federal aid for your fire, but if you were to put your fire out in 24 hours, there would be no federal aid. So, I wonder how much of that talk is going on.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here, I'm looking outside, and there's like 2 trees growing into power lines right outside our house, and I'm like, where's the city? Where's the city on that one?
Oh, well, because I know here in Arizona, I'm in northern Arizona right now, and we've had issues with fires and people standing down for 2 to 3 days, talking about overtime and hazard pay. And there was an incident where somebody flew over my landlord's house in a tanker helicopter on its way to the very first fire that broke out near Interstate 87 and destroyed, just thousands and thousands of saguaros. But the guy there was a fire guy, and he was driving down the road, and he said, "Where is that guy going? If he puts out that fire too soon, we're going to lose all our overtime." That's what he's
saying. That like you're getting Facebook updates, and they're like, "We got people here. We got people here. We've had people working all through the night. We're bringing in 1,500 more.
Yeah.
This is the dozers we have. These are the engines. These are and they update you once an hour."
Yeah, but once your state on fire, that's like, so what,
Yeah, you're getting plenty at work. Well, the firefighters up here, I mean, they, after Paradise, like, no one's just letting shit burn. Like, that was so traumatic for everyone. The problem is this fire, this bear fire that's burning right now, I think they're calling it the North Complex, that was from the lightning strikes. That's been burning for weeks.
Yeah.
And that started in Plumas County. And it merged, so it was the Claremont fire, and it merged with the Bear fire, and they had it 51% contained, and then we had those huge wind gusts, 56 miles an hour that were blowing south, and it just exploded, jumped the fire lines, and it went off, and then they shut off. They are having rolling blackouts at the same time.
And when you look at the fire history since 2010, 2011, you started seeing that your fire season was getting longer and your non-fire season was getting shorter, to the point where just now, 2017, 2018, 2019, and now, the Paradise Fire was what, October? November? November did not used to be fire season. But yet here it overruns an entire town, and your relatives are packing and leaving with flames on their freaking coattails, escaping with with their lives, and in November.
And we're like in a city, which is crazy. Have you seen Oregon? Have you been following Oregon at all?
I like one of those people that predicted this, so it's hard for me to sit there and turn on the TV and watch it. I mean, I know
if you think California is bad, Oregon's skies are blood red.
Yeah.
The entire state of Oregon is on fire, and Oregon's horrible. Kingsley's dad is up there, and every single major road to their house is blocked by fire. They have one back road out, and they have no cell signal, and they don't know where they're going. And so they don't know. Like, I think they should go. Like, I think the plan is if you have only one road out, that's your time. Like, you leave. Like,
that's your clue. That's your clue
to leave. You don't leave and like wait until that road's blocked too and turn the line. Like, I got one road. I don't care how far it is. I got one road.
Yeah.
But like, where do we go? Like, we can't go down the I-5, so they can't come here because the I-5 is closed because all of Southern Oregon is on fire.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're evacuating the entire town to Medford.
See, and Medford is where I went for my very first travel assignment for cancer treatments, and I stayed with a family in Medford, and then never met another person from Medford until just last year, who's a grower over there. And that place is so green, you can't imagine it being that dry, but you feel the sun. You know how hot it is. But the thing that bothers me is that I knew this was going to happen, and so it's kind of like all it is rubbing it in my face when I turn on the news.
They found out Oregon, all their fires are caused from arsonists. It's all people.
I call bullshit on that.
They're making arrests on people that are convicted arsonists.
I'm like, I doubt it, because because I was always worried that they were going to use fires as a form of domestic terrorism, and continue with this heavy-handed curfew, roadblocks, and detaining of people that you just don't like. I really don't want to watch it, and I'm making a video now about the fires, again, calling for every politician's head in America, because if something doesn't change, this is just going to, we're going to see Australia happen here if we're not witnessing it already, And so I don't know. People in Oroville now, a lot of those people came from the Paradise Chico fire.
Yep.
And how come they didn't get evacuated? In Paradise.
That fire was moving 100 football fields a minute. That's how fast that one was moving. It came through early in the morning, and there was no time. It started at Concal or Polka, hit Concal, and wind gusts were 65 miles an hour. And it was in terrain, and it started making its own wind, and they couldn't stop it. They couldn't put fire lines. They couldn't get in the way of it. There was no time. It burned through that town.
So why did they lift the evacuation order? Are they making progress? The wind shift, the wind die down?
Right now the winds are still. There's like no wind.
Okay.
And there hasn't been any wind for days. So they're making good gains, really strategic gains, and they're building on their fire lines. So they got their fire lines down, and now they're just building on them.
Yeah.
Strategic places while it kind of burns itself out.
Mm-hmm.
On the side, they're trying to protect structures.
So there you have it. They cut off people's power due to high winds, and they're supposed to do it anyway because of a carbon footprint. But now California is leaving the biggest carbon footprint it's ever could imagine. They have not thinned the forest. They do not cut trees away from power lines. They instead just shut off your power. And of course, when you're in the middle of a fire zone and you don't have good cell reception, there goes your warning. And people die overnight. And that's what happened at Berry Creek, and it's happened at Gatlinburg, and it's happened at other places as well. Paradise got overran last year. Half the people from Paradise are living in Oroville. I doubt after this year that people are going to want to stick around California. There'll probably be a mass migration. I mean that in a relative sense, in terms of mass migration. But there's going to be a lot of people leaving California, and I don't blame them. And you could hear by Kim's demeanor, you could hear she's under duress. She's talking very rapidly. I had to bleep out about 9 cuss words, and I don't hear her swear hardly ever. So she's under a lot of stress, and I can just imagine what the people who lost their homes at Paradise, people who just barely escaped with their lives, I can imagine what they're going through. They're just reliving this horror. A nightmare is being relived, and the thing I have to impose upon you is it didn't need to happen. And when firefighters complaining about fires being put out too early should not be tolerated. And firefighters should be getting paid just to be on call, so they don't have to pray for fires and stand down. And emergency funds should be devoted in advance, so that people don't have to wait for fires to get out of control before they can declare a state of emergency. But when you have 30 tankers on the ground, on tarmacs, ready to go, and the pilot's on call, getting paid to be on call, That's what you need now. It's a whole new game. All the rules have changed, and the new normal is here. And if you don't adapt to it, it will swallow you up and eat you alive. So there's several things that one last thing I want to address is that they're blaming this on arsonists. This happened in Australia. This happened and when we had major fires before in Oregon, Washington, and California. Somebody was going around, a former CIA, saying, "We think these are terrorists." But there's so much dense dry vegetation out there. What are they waiting for? This stuff has been around for a decade. All of this vegetation, this very dry forest, the droughts, the heat, the ultraviolet. What were they waiting for? Were they just like, these aren't suicide missions? If these are arsonists, they light a fire and then they leave. They don't stay and burn up in their own fires. So what's the reluctance? Why now? Why didn't they do it 10, 15, 20 years ago, if they were really trying to terrorize us? And there's been a strong push to create domestic terror, because then the rules of domestic terror kick in, and they could throw your behind in a jail indefinitely without a trial and not even knowing who accused you. That's what happens if you get a label slapped on you. And so now, just like the label fake news never used to exist, now it's used every day. So I want you to resist the idea that all of this was caused by arsonists, because we see that it doesn't take much. And you drag a chain down a road, you can start a fire. People are careless with their cigarettes, think the butts are out and toss them out the window. People are careless with other things. And then we see the power stations aren't trimming trees away from power line. They're not thinning forests. And then the lightning is as intense as ever. So when you have 1,500 lightning strikes in a single day, and then a bunch of fires pop up, it's very it lacks credibility to blame it on arsonists. And the way things have gone in the last 20 years here, since 2001, the way things have gone is, the more they can blame on terrorism, the more rights you and I lose. So they are afraid for our lives in COVID. They're afraid for our lives with those foreign terrorists. But when it comes to putting out fires that are devastating people, when it comes to simply just getting, fires are the good thing about a fire is that it gives off smoke. And you can see the smoke for tens of miles. There's, and people in California, when they see smoke, they pick up the phone. What's the smoke? So there's no reason not to get water on a fire within the first 12 hours of smoke. There's absolutely no reason. The only reason there is because they don't have the resources devoted and ready to go. And that's what was needed after Australia. We needed 30 tankers every 4 or 5 states, loaded with water, sitting on tarmacs, just like the fire engine down the street does for your home. Well, these are homes too, and this is our future. This is our lives. This is everything. This is your ecology. This is your environment. This is the place that you built a home, and yet it doesn't matter. We put a bunch of prisoners on the fire line with shovels, and they're going to try to save your home from conditions that never before were ever dreamed possible. So if you don't speak up and start screaming at your town halls, if you don't start screaming at your legislature, if you don't start screaming and voting people out of office about this, nothing's going to change. You're going to lose your home one day. You're going to lose your forest one day. You're going to lose your pristine wilderness. It's all going away if you don't get on these people. And so, even if their elections are rigged, you can still send a message by re-electing nobody. Those counts still get done. And when they see, wow, everybody was thrown out of office, even if they rigged the elections, there's a message. a very powerful message to be had. Re-elect nobody. Nobody gets re-elected. That's the only way you're going to change things. If you're going to sit there and start politicizing all of this, all the Democrats, the liberals, Trump, and he didn't care, that's not the problem. The problem is with everybody. And it doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican. There was no Republicans in the state legislature of California going, we need to protect the forest. There were nobody standing there making a stand and raising a scene. Not one person. So they all have a lot of blood on their hands. And if you don't make them see the blood on their hands, then there's just going to be more blood. Until next time, be prepared, not scared.